Diego Sanchez took to Twitter on Wednesday and wrote, quote, "I was doing energy work on my patio as a UFO flew right up on me. I called for my daughter, quick, quick. She watched this thing hoover. Only hundreds of feet away. Albuquerque is a trip. Sightings are regular here. But this shit was contact tonight. It was obvious it was watching me." What up, Fightful fam, and welcome to your Fightful Fix Thursday, November 12th, 2020 edition. We're going to look at the booking of Carlos Condit versus Matt Brown, Paul Felder possibly retiring for good on Saturday's card, and Diego Sanchez's recent encounter with aliens. Now, before we get to any of the action, if you could please hit subscribe and tap the notification bell. It goes such a long way to helping our channel grow, and a like on this video never hurts either. Thank you so much. Let's kick off with the most recent news, and that is that the UFC is trying to book Carlos Condit versus Matt Brown for a third time. The two were first set to fight each other back in 2013, but Matt Brown had to pull out due to an injury, and then they tried to rebook the fight in 2018, and Matt Brown had to pull out again. I actually reported a few months back that the UFC was working on this fight. It was delayed, and now ultimately MMA Fighting's Damon Martin reports that it is set to happen on January 30th. So let's break this down. There are basically two camps when it comes to this fight. Those who say, fuck yes, let's do it. Carlos Condit, Matt Brown, vicious action fighters. And there are those who say that this fight is about 7 years too late. Why are we even doing it? They're both old and washed. Now, I strongly disagree with the second camp, and that is not to say that Carlos Condit and Matt Brown are in peak form. It's quite obvious that they're on the tail ends of their careers, but if these guys want to continue to fight and earn a living from mixed martial arts, then these are the kind of fights you should put them in. You don't want to keep putting them against guys who are younger, stronger, more well-rounded, more evolved, and who are just gonna keep shortening the lifespan of legends like Carlos Condit and Matt Brown. No, you want to give them the old man fight treatment. You want to let them go after each other in a fight between two guys of relative skill set whose name value you can still rely on, and who won't lose much luster dropping fights to one another. If Matt Brown and Carlos Condit keep on losing fights to no-name prospects, it's going to give you diminishing returns. It's going to elevate those winners less over time, and it is going to hurt the reputations of Condit and Brown more and more. This is a phenomenal main card fight. It's not going to be a main event, at least you don't hope it would be. You don't think it would be, although I think they have enough name value to warrant it. But like, put them in a co-main event spot. Put them in a spot under two, ranked prospects who are vying for a top 5, top 10 position, or maybe even a number 1 contendership status. And you're gonna put these guys in the best position for everyone. You're gonna give Carlos Condit and Matt Brown a fan-friendly fight. You're going to give them a fight each man is capable of winning, and you can leverage their name value to help the main event ahead of them. Now, you think about Matt Brown and Carlos Condit, there's no way that fight is going to be boring. I'm pretty confident it'll be a good fight, although I think Luke Thomas says it best when he says that one of the clearest signs that a fighter is sort of losing their edge and is sort of aging out of MMA is not when they get knocked out, it's when they can't pull the trigger. And one example that he's used recently is Robbie Lawler, a brutal, vicious, savage fighter who in his most recent fights has seemed a little less willing to throw. And if that is true, you would hope the same won't apply to Condit and Brown. I think will be okay since they're both at relative skill set and relative age. I think they're going to be a little more willing to throw and trade versus if they were fighting stronger, younger guys. Listen, I'm all for it. Would I have rather seen it in 2013? Of course, but this is the fight we have. Let's do it. Carlos Condit is coming off of his first win since losing in that all-time great fight to Robbie Lawler. It started a 5-fight losing streak. He finally picked up a win, a unanimous decision against Court McGee recently. You may remember that I think he broke Court's nose in that fight with an uppercut. Matt Brown, meanwhile, heading into his last fight, was coming off of back-to-back knockout wins over Diego Sanchez and Ben Saunders. Unfortunately, he lost a round 2 TKO to Miguel Beza. Okay, and let's touch on Saturday's short-notice replacement headliner, Paul Felder. Paul Felder stepped in on 5 days' notice to face Rafael dos Anjos in the main event of UFC Vegas 14 after Islam Makhachev was forced to pull out. Now, Paul Felder has been sort of retired. We know that in both MMA and pro wrestling, retirements never really stick. These guys keep coming back. Some people use it as leverage, like Conor McGregor. Others want to take one last shot at glory. We see it all the time. And In Paul Felder's defense, he's always been sort of tongue-in-cheek about his retirement. You know, he's always kind of played coy that he would come back for the right fight, or he may not be completely done. And here he is being a total gamer, stepping in on 5 days' notice. I think one of the most interesting tidbits to come out of, the pre-fight interviews is Paul Felder told MMA Junkie that should he beat RDA, he is more likely to retire than if he were to lose. Paul said that a loss just wouldn't settle right with him, and he wouldn't want to go out laying on his back. However, if he beats Rafael dos Anjos, it just seems like a very poetic way for him to come in on 5 days' notice, be that gamer that we've always known the Irish Dragon is, beat a guy like RDA, former world champion, and then ride off into the sunset. And I think Paul Felder's got it right here. Now, let's say they come back with him with like a Justin Gaethje fight offer. He might take it, but if Paul Felder is at the stage of his career where he has this super promising job as an analyst, and you can just imagine how much he will continue to blossom in that role should he retire from in-ring competition for good. I think the idea that Paul Felder is going to be a world champion is probably, although not impossible, very unlikely. At this stage, I think we've seen his ceiling, which is he can contend with the best guys on the planet, but can he win the big one? I think Paul Felder is probably at the stage of his career where he realizes that, in the top 10, top 15 of the lightweight division, any one of those guys could be world champion, but is the likelihood so great that he should continue to fight while also having this super promising, I'm sure lucrative role as an analyst? All the power to Paul Felder. If he wins this fight, I would love to see him retire, hands raised, over a world champion like RDA. I think that's just the coolest way for him to go out. If he were to lose, I agree. You know what? Take another fight. Paul Felder is anything but washed. He can still compete. A lot of people had him winning that Dan Hooker fight, although he was not awarded the decision. So I say Paul Felder still has plenty of fight left in him, but if he were to go out right now with a win over RDA, he'd be healthy, he'd be impressive, and he wouldn't be waiting until his absolute lowest to call it a day. And let's wrap up with the most Diego Sanchez story you could get, a UFO sighting, apparently. Diego Sanchez took to Twitter on Wednesday and wrote, quote, "I was doing energy work on my patio as a UFO flew right up on me. I called for my daughter, quick. She watched this thing hoover. Only hundreds of feet away. Albuquerque is a trip. Sightings are regular here. But this shit was contact tonight. It was obvious it was watching me." If you're going to ask me for my take on extraterrestrial life, I'd say that it is a statistical improbability, if not outright impossibility, that we are the only life form out there. Have aliens visited Earth? I don't think so. Or is there extraterrestrial life that is aware of planet Earth? Probably not. And is there extraterrestrial life flying around in Albuquerque? I'd say most definitely not. But I mean, that's Diego Sanchez for you. Okay, and that is all for today's Fightful Fix. Let me know in the comment section, guys. Would you like to see Paul Felder retire at UFC Vegas 14? Is it conditional on a win? Is it conditional on a loss? Let me know what you think. Plus, Carlos Condit versus Matt Brown. Is that something you're excited for? I know it's not as good as it would have been 7 years ago, but are you still excited to watch that fight? Let me know what you guys think. We always love to hear from you. As always, thank you guys so much for checking this video out. We've got a lot of other cool content. 1-2 Punch podcast live streams on Fridays. We have fighter predictions every Sunday. We have fighters telling their favorite stories, from street fights to crazy injuries. Those usually come out on Mondays. And as we get going here on Fightful MMA, we're going to have react videos coming out. We're going to have pre-fight interviews, post-fight interviews, the whole 9 yards. So please hit subscribe, tap the notification bell, and leave a like on this video. We always love the support. For Fightful MMA, I'm Shakiel Mahjouri, and stay tuned for everything Fightful and so delightful. Peace.